the graveyard planet. The silence in the Galactic Council chamber was deafening. Every representative from the 47-member species sat frozen as the holographic display rotated slowly above the central platform. The planet appeared beautiful, from space, with swirling crimson clouds and vast red forests covering most of its surface. But everyone in that room knew the truth about Zerion 7. Ambassador Zeth Ka of the Reptilian Confederacy stood up, his scaled hands gripping the podium, tightly. His yellow eyes swept across the assembled delegates as he began to speak in his measured, gravelly voice. Honored representatives, we gather today to discuss what our databases have classified as the most dangerous planet in known space. Zerion 7, which our explorers have dubbed the Crimson Wilds, has claimed the lives of 23 different expeditionary forces over the past century. The hologram zoomed in, showing dense red vegetation that seemed to pulse with its own rhythm. Strange, formations that looked like mountains moved slowly across the landscape. Rivers of what appeared to be blood-red water carved impossible patterns through the terrain. The Zephyrian Empire sent their finest warriors, Zeth Ka continued, his voice growing darker. 3,000 elite soldiers with advanced weaponry. They lasted 56 hours before their final transmission cut to static. A murmur of unease rippled through the chamber. The Zephyrians were known throughout the galaxy as the most formidable military force ever assembled. The Crystalline Collective attempted a purely technological approach. The ambassador went on. They deployed automated mining and colonization equipment, believing machines would succeed where living beings had failed. Their entire robotic fleet was consumed within 37 hours. The representative from the ethereal Commonwealth, a being of pure energy contained within a shimmering force field, spoke up. What about the hive-mind conjunction? Surely their collective consciousness provided some advantage? Zeth Ka's expression grew even more grim. The entire hive mind went silent after 18 hours. When our rescue ships arrived, we found their vessels empty. No bodies, no signs of struggle. They had simply vanished, as if the planet had absorbed them completely. The chamber erupted in worried conversations, in dozens of different languages and communication methods. Some species communicated through color changes, others through electromagnetic pulses, and a few through complex chemical releases. The pattern is always the same, Zeth Ka said, raising his voice to restore order. Each species brings their unique advantages. The Aquatic Federation used biological adaptation. The Machine Collective relied on pure artificial intelligence. The nomadic tribes brought centuries of survival experience. None of it mattered. The planet learns from each attempt and becomes more efficient at eliminating the next. At the back of the chamber, a door slid open with a soft hiss. 3 figures in simple blue uniforms walked in, seemingly unbothered by the tense atmosphere. The lead figure was a woman with short brown hair and calm gray eyes. Her companions, a man and a woman, flanked her as they approached the central platform. Ambassador Zeth Ka, the woman said, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber's acoustics. I'm Captain Sarah Mitchell of the Human Exploration Corps. We've been monitoring this discussion. The entire assembly turned to stare at the 3 humans. Many species had heard of humans, but few had seen them in person. They appeared remarkably ordinary compared to the exotic aliens that filled the chamber. Zeth Ka's pupils narrowed to slits. Captain Mitchell, I trust you've heard everything we've discussed. Surely you understand that any mission to Zerion 7 would be suicide. Sarah smiled calmly. With respect, Ambassador, that's exactly why we're here. A wave of shocked silence swept through the chamber. The representative from the silicon-based collective, whose body resembled a walking crystal formation, spoke, in a voice like grinding stones. You cannot be serious. Your species has only recently achieved interstellar travel. You lack the military might of the Zephyrians, the technology of the crystallines, or the psychic abilities of the ethereals. That's true, Sarah acknowledged, but we have something none of those species had. And what might that be? Zeth Ka asked, his tone dripping with skepticism. Sarah's companion, a woman with dark skin and intelligent brown eyes, stepped forward. I'm Dr. Elena Rodriguez, xenobiologist. We've studied every report from the failed expeditions. While other species focused on conquering or exploiting Xerion 7, we've noticed something they all missed. The third human, a tall man with weathered features and sharp green eyes, joined them. Marcus Thompson, survival specialist. Every mission treated the planet like a hostile environment to be overcome. But what if it's not just an environment? Zethka's throat sac inflated, a sign of agitation among his species. Explain yourselves. Doctor. Rodriguez activated a small device and additional holographic displays appeared around the central image of Xerion 7. Look at the patterns, the way the vegetation moves in coordinated waves, how the geography shifts in response to landing sites, the precise timing of each species' elimination. The planet isn't just hostile, Sarah said, her voice filled with certainty. It's intelligent. It's been studying every species that lands on it, learning their weaknesses, adapting its defenses accordingly. Marcus nodded. Other species came with predetermined strategies: military conquest, technological supremacy, biological adaptation. But humans excel at one thing above all others. The chamber waited in tense silence. Improvisation, Sarah finished. We adapt faster than any other known species. We change tactics mid-battle. We solve problems with whatever resources we have available. And most importantly, we never stop learning. Zethka stood slowly, his massive frame casting a shadow over the human delegation. Captain Mitchell, I have witnessed the destruction of 23 expeditions. I've seen species with capabilities your kind cannot imagine reduced to nothing. What makes you think 3 humans can succeed where thousands of others have failed? Sarah's gray eyes met his yellow ones without flinching. Because we're not going there to conquer or exploit. We're going there to understand. The representative from the Hive Mind Collective's replacement node buzzed with electrical activity. Understanding will not protect you from whatever consumed our consciousness. Understanding will not save you from the fate that befell our warriors. Maybe not, Dr. Rodriguez said. But every scientific breakthrough in human history started with someone willing to ask questions instead of making assumptions. Marcus pulled up additional data on his handheld device. We've identified 13 distinct phases in the planet's elimination process. Each phase targets different aspects of the intruding species, but there's a gap between phases 7 and 8 that no previous expedition has survived long enough to exploit. You're planning to use that gap? Zethka asked, his professional curiosity overriding his concern. We're planning to expand it, Sarah replied. Turn it into an opportunity for communication instead of a momentary weakness. The ethereal Commonwealth's representative pulsed with concerned energy patterns. Communication implies the planet has consciousness. If that's true, what you're proposing is first contact with a planetary-scale intelligence. Exactly, Sarah said with a slight smile. And humans wrote the book on first contact protocols. Zethka was quiet for a long moment, studying the 3 humans. Finally he spoke. The Galactic Council has no authority to stop you, but neither can we provide assistance if your mission fails. We understand, Sarah nodded, but if we succeed, we'll have opened up an entirely new category of planetary exploration. Imagine the knowledge we could gain from a planet-sized intelligence. And if you fail? The crystal representative asked. Marcus grinned, showing very human teeth. Then we'll make sure our failure teaches the next expedition something useful. The chamber erupted in discussions again, but this time the tone was different. Where before there had been resigned acceptance of Xerion 7's invincibility, now there was a spark of hope. Sarah turned to address the full assembly. The human expedition to Xerion 7 launches in 72 hours. Our ship, the New Horizon, is equipped with adaptive technology and a crew trained in xenobiology, survival tactics, and diplomatic protocols. She paused, letting her words sink in. We're not going there as conquerors or refugees. We're going as neighbors hoping to introduce ourselves properly. As the 3 humans turned to leave, Zethka called out, Captain Mitchell. Sarah stopped and looked back. For all our sakes, I hope human stubbornness proves more resilient than Zephyrian strength or crystalline technology. Sarah's smile widened. Ambassador, you clearly haven't studied human history very carefully. Stubbornness is just the beginning. 72 hours later, the New Horizon dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Zirian system. The planet hung before them like a massive red eye, its crimson atmosphere swirling with unnatural patterns. Dr. Rodriguez studied the sensor readings with growing excitement. The electromagnetic signatures are off the charts. The entire planet is generating complex signal patterns. Marcus checked their defensive systems one final time. Whatever's down there, it already knows we're here. Sarah sat in the captain's chair, her hands steady on the controls. Then let's not keep it waiting. Time to find out if 24 is humanity's lucky number. The New Horizon began its descent toward the Crimson Wilds, carrying the hopes of an entire galaxy and the determination of 3 humans who refused to accept that any problem couldn't be solved. The human revolution, the New Horizon, touched down in a clearing that seemed to have formed just moments before their arrival. The red grass beneath them pulsed with bioluminescent patterns, creating waves of light that rippled outward from their landing site. Above them, towering crimson trees swayed without any wind, their leaves rustling in complex rhythms that almost sounded like whispered conversations. Atmospheric readings are stable, Dr. Rodriguez reported, her instruments detecting breathable air with unusual trace elements. But the entire ecosystem is showing coordinated activity. It's like every plant and microorganism is connected. Marcus monitored their perimeter sensors, watching as strange creatures gathered at the edge of the clearing. They didn't approach, but they didn't leave either. We've got an audience, multiple species all maintaining exactly the same distance from our ship. Sarah studied the tactical display, noting how their observers had arranged themselves in a perfect circle around the landing site. 48 hours until the planet's historical elimination timeline begins. That gives us 2 full days to establish communication. The 3 humans suited up in their adaptive gear, designed to respond to environmental changes in real time. Unlike the heavy armor worn by previous expeditions, their equipment was lightweight and flexible, prioritizing mobility and sensor capability over protection. As they stepped outside, the very air seemed to hum with energy. The ground beneath their feet felt alive, responding to their weight with subtle vibrations that traveled outward in all directions. It's like walking on the surface of a massive neural network, Dr. Rodriguez whispered, kneeling to take soil samples. Her scanner immediately detected complex organic compounds unlike anything in their databases. Marcus kept watch while she worked, noting how the surrounding creatures shifted position whenever the humans moved. They're not hunting behaviors. More like curiosity or evaluation, Sarah added, remembering how previous expeditions had described being studied before the attacks began. Dr. Rodriguez's excitement grew as she analyzed her samples. Sarah, you need to see this. These aren't separate organisms. The soil, the plants, the creatures, they're all part of the same biological system. The entire planet is one massive life form. The implications hit them immediately. Every previous expedition had been attacking a single intelligent organism that was simply defending itself. That changes everything, Marcus said. We're not dealing with a hostile ecosystem. We're dealing with a planetary consciousness that sees visitors as invasive organisms. Sarah activated her communicator. New Horizon, are you recording this? Affirmative, Captain, came the reply from their ship's AI. All data is being transmitted to Earth and the Galactic Council in real time. Dr. Rodriguez stood up, her eyes bright with discovery. If this is a single organism, then it must have some form of centralized consciousness. A brain or multiple processing centers distributed across the planet. She pointed to a massive formation in the distance that they had initially mistaken for a mountain range. Now, looking more carefully, they could see it pulsing with the same rhythms as the smaller organisms around them. There, she said, that's not geology, that's neurology on a planetary scale. As if responding to her words, the pulsing intensified. The creatures around them began making soft sounds, not threatening, but almost musical. The trees swayed in more complex patterns, and the bioluminescent displays in the grass grew brighter. It's Responding to us, Marcus observed, but not aggressively. More like it's trying to figure out what we are. Sarah made a decision that would echo through galactic history. Instead of preparing defenses or planning tactical maneuvers, she sat, down cross-legged on the pulsing ground, and placed her bare hands on the living soil. "Sarah, what are you doing?" Marcus asked, alarmed. "Something no previous expedition tried," she replied calmly. "I'm introducing myself." The moment her skin made contact with the planet's surface, everything changed. The humming in the air intensified, and complex patterns of light began racing through the ground beneath them. The creatures around them moved closer, their sounds becoming more harmonious. Dr. Rodriguez quickly set up her communication equipment, designed to detect and analyze complex signal patterns. "I'm reading massive increases in bioelectric activity. It's like the entire planet just became more alert." "Can you translate the signals?" Sarah asked, maintaining her connection with the ground. "Working on it," Elena replied, her fingers flying over her instruments. "The patterns are incredibly complex, but they're not random. There's definitely intelligence here, trying to establish some form of communication protocol." The first breakthrough came when Dr. Rodriguez realized the planet was using mathematical sequences to establish common ground. Prime numbers, geometric progressions, and basic algebraic relationships pulsed through the living network in waves. "It's using universal mathematical concepts," she explained excitedly. "The same approach we'd use to communicate with any unknown intelligence." Sarah felt a tingling sensation where her hands touched the ground. Images began forming in her mind, not her own thoughts, but something vast and ancient trying to share its perspective. "I'm seeing something," she said softly. "Memories. The planet is showing me what happened to the other expeditions." In her mind, she witnessed the arrival of the Zephyrian warriors. From the planet's perspective, they appeared as a violent infection, attacking its surface with weapons and explosives. The planet's immune response had been swift and decisive, treating them as a disease to be eliminated. It wasn't malicious, Sarah realized. Every time a species landed here, they immediately began trying to change or exploit the environment. The planet saw them as parasites and responded accordingly. Marcus knelt beside her. "So how do we convince a planetary intelligence that we're not a threat?" Dr. Rodriguez had been working frantically to decode more of the communication signals. "I think I have something. The planet is using chemical markers to identify different types of organisms. Each previous expedition registered as a hostile pathogen because of their behavior patterns." She showed them her analysis. "But our approach is different. We're not trying to change anything or take anything. We're just trying to understand." Sarah felt the tingling sensation intensify. More images flowed through the connection. The planet's loneliness, its isolation, its desire to communicate with the strange beings that kept arriving but always ended up needing to be eliminated for the planet's survival. "It's been alone for millions of years," Sarah whispered. "It's intelligent, curious, but every contact with other life forms has ended in conflict." Dr. Rodriguez made another breakthrough. "I can modulate our biosignatures to register as symbiotic rather than parasitic. If we can convince the planet that we benefit it rather than harm it, its immune response should change." "How do we benefit a planet?" Marcus asked. Sarah smiled, still maintaining her connection with the living ground. "By being teachers and students at the same time. We learn from it, and we share our knowledge in return." Working together, they implemented Dr. Rodriguez's biosignature modifications. Almost immediately, the atmosphere around them changed. The creatures that had been maintaining their distance began approaching more closely, their sounds becoming welcoming rather than cautious. The ground beneath them grew warmer, and nutrients began flowing toward their location through the root network. The planet was beginning to treat them as beneficial organisms rather than invaders. "It's working," Dr. Rodriguez laughed. "The planet is actually beginning to cultivate the area around us. It's creating an ideal environment for human habitation." Over the following hours, they established a more complex communication system. The planet learned to interpret their spoken language through vibrations in the ground, while they learned to read its responses through bioelectric patterns and chemical signals. The breakthrough moment came when Sarah asked the planet about its experiences with other species. Instead of showing her memories of conflict and destruction, it began sharing its accumulated knowledge from each expedition. It learned from everyone, she explained to her companions. It absorbed their languages, their technologies, their biological characteristics. It's been building a vast database of galactic civilization, but it never had anyone to share it with. Dr. Rodriguez was recording everything, knowing that this single conversation would revolutionize their understanding of planetary intelligence. What does it want from us? Sarah posed the question through their communication link. The answer came back in waves of complex emotion and imagery. Companionship, she said simply. It wants to be part of the galactic community, not isolated from it. Marcus looked around at the transformed environment. The hostile red landscape was becoming more welcoming by the hour, with new types of plants emerging that seemed specifically designed to support human life. So what do we do now? He asked. Sarah stood up but maintained her connection with the planet through her equipment. We established the first diplomatic relationship between humanity and a planetary intelligence. We set up a permanent embassy here. Dr. Rodriguez was already making plans. We'll need to bring more specialists, linguists, diplomats, scientists. If this planet has knowledge from 23 different advanced civilizations, the learning opportunities are unlimited. As news of their success reached the Galactic Council, the response was immediate and overwhelming. Species that had written off Zarian 7 as a death trap were now requesting permission to send their own diplomatic missions. But the planet, now calling itself Crimson Mind in the human language, made one thing clear. It would only accept visitors who came in peace, seeking knowledge and offering friendship in return. Sarah stood in the growing embassy complex, watching as humans and aliens worked together to build the first interspecies research station on a living planet. The red sky above them pulsed with welcoming patterns, and the ground beneath their feet hummed with contentment. 24, Marcus said, joining her at the observation deck. What? Sarah asked. 24 was humanity's lucky number after all. We were the 24th species to land here and the first to succeed. Sarah smiled, feeling the planet's happiness through their communication link. Not succeed, Marcus. We were the first to make a friend. Through the vast neural network that connected every living thing on the planet, Crimson Mind sent a message that reached every corner of its surface and broadcast into space for any listening ears. The message was simple but revolutionary. Welcome home. For the first time in galactic history, a planet had opened its arms to welcome visitors as family rather than defending itself against invaders. And it had taken humanity's greatest strength, the ability to see beyond differences and find common ground, to make it possible. The age of planetary diplomacy had begun, and humanity had once again proven that sometimes the most powerful weapon was an extended hand and an open mind.